Hello, you are listening to On The Topic, and this week we are diving into the weekly Roundup Vault again, and we're bringing you Conspiracy Theories, Volume 1, all the way from 2019.
We have, yeah.
I'm grabbing my tinfoil hat. I'm Dan.
And I'm trying to avoid getting my blood sucked by the lizard Illuminati. I'm Alex, and it was an absolute bonkers episode, and I loved it. I think we both came out of that episode with big grins on our faces. It was just absolute crackers.
It was insane. It's a really good episode.
Yeah.
I think for a while now we've sort of struggled to figure out what our niche is as a podcast, because we don't really do anything specific. But maybe this is it. Maybe this is where it all began, Alex.
Maybe.
Conspiracy Theories, Volume 1. Our niche is left field episodes.
Most possibly. And, we cover quite a lot on here, and there's an awful lot. I mean, I start off talking about, some of the science, oddly, behind conspiracy theorists, narcissists they end up being, and people who perhaps are not trusting of the wider world. Shock. We also cover some popular and very left field conspiracy theories. I think do you cover Avril Lavigne?
Yeah, Avril Lavigne, Paul McCartney. There was some good ones in there. I think I sort of primarily honed in on the pop culture stuff, as what we were as a podcast at the time. But you went for some proper left field stuff.
Yeah, the popular moon landings, which is an interesting one. It depends on where you land in terms of is it a poor production out in the studio in Nevada desert, or is it actually on the moon? And there's some really interesting evidence to and for either side of things. And then we talk about the Illuminati, the lizard people elite, and bloodsuckers and the rest of it. So it's odd, but it's fun, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good episode. And there's plenty more conspiracy theories. I mean, look, back in 2019, that's an entirely different world than where we are now. And there's a lot more conspiracy theories.
One of the best things about this episode as well, we ended up getting some listener feedback, and we ended up doing the Mandela Effect, which obviously you can listen to now.
Yes.
A few episodes back. So it's worth checking out.
Yeah. And then, as you say, Dan, it kind of spun that rabbit hole kind of genre that they've actually got on YouTube. We've got a whole playlist dedicated to this stuff, and it's slowly growing. Every month that passes. So yeah, we had a lot of fun this one. Hopefully you can hear that as we talk and as we reminisce. And if you haven't heard Conspiracy Theories Volume 1 before, you're in for an absolute treat.
Oh, it's so good. And of course, if you want more, there is of course Conspiracy Theories Volume 2. I can't remember which episode it was, but it was sort of roughly October, November time 2020 we released it. And we actually recorded it at a time where we were allowed in the same room together, very briefly.
Yes,
20 metres... 20 metres? 2 metres apart.
Yeah, my house is not that big. But yeah, a couple of metres. But yeah, look, if you want another volume, then there's plenty more to have.
And they weave in and out of our left field episodes anyway.
Indeed.
Well, and here it is. Conspiracy Theories, Volume 1, from all the way in 2019.
Hello, Rasters, and welcome to another episode of the Weekly Roundup. I'm Alex.
I've got my tin hat on. I'm Dan.
And this week we are going to be covering conspiracy theories. So we've been wanting to do this for a while, and I think it's triggered offshoots, I guess, because we're going to have the Mandela Effect as separate.
Yep.
We talked about this in the last couple of episodes. The reason being is because... who recommended it?
Louise.
So thank you, Louise. Building our pipeline of episodes. We may touch upon it, but we're going to have a separate episode, I guess, following this one.
Yeah.
But today we're going to cover the weird and the wonderful from the tinfoil hat community of conspiracy theories.
Yeah, absolutely.
And before we get into that, I guess, Dan, I want to give you some theory about conspiracy theories.
Go on.
So apparently, in 2015... researchers seeking to understand psychological factors underlying conspiracy beliefs, bit of a mouthful there, found that people with high levels of individual narcissism, so talking people like Tony Stark,
Okay.
tended to gravitate towards these theories, and particularly, and perhaps counterintuitively, those also with low self-esteem. Apparently, while narcissism may look like an extra heaping of self-regard, psychologists have long observed that unlike people with healthy self-esteem, those with narcissistic tendencies are commonly orientated towards boosting themselves by denigrating other people. I.e., those who disagree with me are duped by the propaganda, as an example.
Yep.
They also tend to have a negative view of humanity, i.e., look at them, they are out to destroy us.
That might explain some of the conspiracy theories that I've sort of scraped out of the conspiracy theory barrel.
Yeah, and scraping is certainly out. There's some really weird ones out there. Apparently, people with narcissistic traits often spend a lot of time comparing themselves to others, and a tendency that suggests some underlying uncertainty about their abilities. So, this is not to say that those who believe in them are perhaps any of those characteristics, but it certainly kind of rings true of people perhaps who are creating these wonderful, weird stories.
Yeah, definitely.
But we have probably what's going to be a good half an hour, 40 minutes of the weird and the wonderful in the in-between. What one do you all start off with, Dan?
Well, this is the first time I think our listeners have given us homework.
Oh, yeah.
So the first up was Paul McCartney actually died, and that was recommended by Natalie.
Yeah.
So the question I need to ask you, Alex, is: did the Queen actually unite someone else in 1997?
Well, did he or did Paul McCartney ever actually form the band Wings? Did he ever get married? These are all questions because apparently, and this is on my list as well, he secretly, not so secretly, died in 1966. So he wasn't with the Beatles very, very long. And apparently the other Beatles covered up his death.
Yeah. So apparently he died in 1966 in a car accident. It transpires that apparently that he had an argument with the other Beatles. He'd stormed off, crashed and was decapitated.
Oh God, I didn't read that.
I don't know how you get decapitated in a car crash. I don't know. But yeah, you're right. So apparently the Beatles covered up his death. They hired someone who looked like him, sang like him, and had the same jovial personality. And apparently this gentleman's name is Billy Shears.
Oh, right.
Theorists believe they began to feel guilty, or the Beatles began to feel guilty, and began to hide clues in their music.
So apparently the song Taxman, George Harrison gave his advice for those who die, apparently meaning Paul. And the entire Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album was awash with Paul is Dead clues.
I think people are starting to look into this a bit too much as well, because John Lennon's A Day in the Life has the lyrics, "He blew his mind out in a car." And the re-recorded phrase, "Paul is dead, miss him," which is only evident when you play the song backwards.
Yeah, which isn't the saying that certain heavy metal bands in the 80s and 90s, if you played them backwards, was demonic messages from Satan? So you really are kind of, stretching for this one.
Should we start playing some like Blink-182 songs on backwards if they've got any demonic messages?
Well, I don't know about demonic messages, but there might be at least half decent sounding songs.
Oh, ban.
Well, even you said it, Dan. Some of the new stuff has been a little bit miss than hit. So perhaps not.
Maybe the newer stuff. The old stuff's classic.
Oh, for sure.
Also, Lennon also mumbled, "I buried Paul" at the end of Strawberry Fields Forever. Although Lennon actually went on to later claim in an interview the phrase is actually cranberry sauce, and denied backward messages.
That sounds exactly the same, doesn't it? I mean, what's with cranberry sauce?
Cranberry sauce, and I buried Paul. They sound completely different, right?
Yeah, and why would you talk about cranberry sauce? So, it's quite nice with turkey, I guess, at Christmas.
Yeah. So, interestingly, there was no reported car crash in 1966.
What, at all?
At all. But it's true that Paul McCartney's Mini Cooper was involved in an accident in 1967, so a year later. The driver was not killed, and nor was it Paul McCartney driving it. Which is interesting. Paul did clear the air with an interview in Life magazine, where he said, "Perhaps the rumour started because I haven't been in much of the press lately. The theory lost traction, but did resurface in different ways over the years." So one I picked up on was from 2009. So Wired magazine printed an article featuring a study by 2 forensic scientists.
Oh, right, okay.
They used a computer tech to compare measurements before and after the car accident. They took on the project to prove the theory that it was all a lie. But interestingly, they did discover the point where the nose detracts from the face was different in both skulls. The position of the ears were different in a way that they couldn't be explained by surgery, and the shape of the palate was dissimilar.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Well, there might be something in this?
There might be something in this.
Wow.
So, Paul, I mean, if you're not real, or the real Paul McCartney, hit us up. Let us know.
Yeah, give us the exclusive, the world exclusive, and finally come clean. Let us know.
And help us make some money.
What I would say, though, is actually his latest album, I think it's Egypt Station, is really good. His song "Come On To Me," I don't care if it's McCartney or his Step In. It's a phenomenal song. About a year old now, but it's so good. So not that I want to fill his coffers with streams and royalties, but it's such a good track. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go on to any streaming service. Come On To Me, Paul McCartney. You will not be disappointed. But yeah, I got that one too. It's probably one of the most famous conspiracy theories, actually.
Yeah, definitely. So what have you got, Alex?
I've got a whole number of amazing ones, but actually we are celebrating a particular, at the time of recording at least anyway, a particular anniversary, Dan.
Okay.
It's in the news. I'm not sure if you saw the news today.
Nope.
Moon landings.
Ah, yes. My dad loves this conspiracy theory to the fact that he has probably watched every video on YouTube, should I say. He's explored it in great depth, and he is still convinced that man never went to the moon.
Well, let's dive into this one. So, on the 20th of July 1969, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, landed on the moon, apparently.
Allegedly.
And since then, the US has put men on the moon 6 more times, which I didn't realise.
Oh, really?
Yeah, apparently. Yet conspiracy theorists insist that this never ever happened, believing instead that the lunar landings were nothing more than an expensive plot involving elaborate film sets, executed under creative direction of filmmaker Stanley Kubrick.
Wasn't it to sort of try and disguise that they'd been to the moon before the Russians?
Yeah, space race. So the Russians were actually very, very close behind, almost literally, and they needed to prove that they'd got there to save face. And obviously they put an awful lot of money into NASA and the space agency, and they couldn't lose to the old Ruskies.
No.
So apparently, and Stanley Kubrick later then released 2001: Space Odyssey, which I've never seen, but apparently it's a classic. And apparently there's synergies with that film and with the film recording.
Oh wow!
So there are some questions that are thrown up. I'm not sure if any of you listeners have actually seen any documentaries or articles on it online. Again, you've got to be very careful with these things. We are talking about conspiracy theories online, so you've got a whole random kind of raft of questionable material. But on there are stills of the photos that were beamed back allegedly. And some questions are, where are the stars? So apparently on the captured images, the iconic ones where they're bouncing around, or you're looking at Earth just on the horizon of the moon, there are no stars.
Yep.
But NASA say the Earth and the moon both reflect enough sunlight as to render the stars invisible. And more specifically, with a camera configured to take a good amount of pictures in that kind of light present on the surface of the moon and outside of the moon, stars are too faint to register as an exposure. Because of course we're not talking digital, we are talking light sensitive film. So I mean, NASA obviously haven't answered for everything, but apparently that's the response they're going with.
Of course.
They would say that.
Yep.
Another one, which is quite good actually. Why is the flag moving in the vacuum of space?
It would just sort of like float around, wouldn't it, surely?
It probably wouldn't move at all anyway, but yeah. Essentially, the footage is showing it almost waving as though there's some wind, but of course, there ain't no wind in space. NASA say a flag is being stretched into place over a pole, and a flag hanging from a pole while the pole is being twisted deeper into the ground is going to move.
Yeah.
So they're talking about general movement and physics. It's not solar winds. It's not to do with the fact that there's a fan on set on Earth. It's to do with the pole positioning, apparently. And why isn't there a crater from the engines under the lunar lander? And why didn't it kick up a huge amount of dust when it took off? Very, very good questions. NASA says, turns out the soil on the moon is pretty hard packed, so it deflected force from the lander's thrusters rather than being scoured into a crater. But also the landing did kick up dust, it just didn't behave the way we'd expect, apparently. Given our experience with dust, all comes from a planet with an atmosphere. Anyway, if you want to see moon dust, you can, apparently. Just check out Neil Armstrong's suit at the Smithsonian in America.
Okay.
Apparently, inferred defence rocks brought back from the moon have been studied extensively, including by scientists outside NASA, and proven that characteristics means they're not from Earth.
Which is what they would say if they were paid off.
Indeed. But the question is, why haven't we gone back? Because apparently the lunar landers, the technology was no more than, say, a 90s calculator. Very, very simple analog type stuff. It's all very manual and all very simple kind of calculations. Nothing like what we've got in our hands now, tablets and smart devices or the laptop we're recording on. So why haven't we gone back? It would be a hell of a lot easier and safe to do so, apart from money.
Wouldn't solar flares as well be a bit of an issue? Because essentially there's no atmosphere on the moon.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that just like take you out?
We could say that about the ISS. So there can be shielding, and you can account sometimes for a solar flare.
Okay.
So why haven't they gone back then?
I'm just not convinced we've ever been.
I'm somewhere on the fence with this. So there was a study in the US. I can only go on US figures because the astronauts were US. But apparently a figure which is 11% of Americans, which is quite high, apparently out of a poll, believe that the lunar landings never actually happened. So a large proportion of one of the largest kind of countries in the world believes that actually their own astronauts never actually visited one of the most important satellites known to us.
It's an interesting one. I'm convinced we didn't, and so I've heard my dad talk about it for a good couple of hours, showing me YouTube videos of why we never went. I'm convinced that we never went. So, yeah, it's a bit of a strange one.
Yeah, but it's a biggie. I mean, like him or not, Trump has said that after, I think, the Obama years of not funding NASA, he's actually done a U-turn, so actually he wants to send astronauts to the moon.
Yeah.
And he wants the first female astronauts to go with them.
Fair dues.
Which is a surprise for that individual, but nonetheless has been well received. Whether or not it actually comes through, because that does take a good couple of years to plan and to invest upon, but it might be the first time they do it. Or they may never go and it's all just a hoax.
Yeah.
But that's one of the most popular ones, and certainly is in America.
So next up from Cam was Avril Lavigne. So
yeah.
Interestingly, because of these two recommendations we've had, it led me on to another. It sort of took me onto a string of other pop stars.
A little bit of a rabbit hole of conspiracy theories from the sounds of it.
Yeah.
The more you go down, the more crazy it gets.
Yeah, definitely. So I've got 3 other pop stars after this, and then I've got one from my other half, Claire.
Okay, cool.
So going to Avril Lavigne, Apparently, she was replaced by a lookalike in 2003 by someone called Melissa. It was bandied around the internet in 2005, and it was thought to have originated on a Brazilian website. I mean, it doesn't sound shady at all, does it?
Fully legit.
Sounds legit. So the fan theory is Lavigne struggled with fame at the beginning of her career, and she started to use a body double named Melissa Vandella.
Huh.
I mean, that already sounds like a fake name as it is. At some point, the real Avril Lavigne died, or believed to have allegedly committed suicide, and the record label replaced her full-time with Melissa.
Huh.
So the proof, and I use the quote-unquote...
He's actually doing it inverted commas.
Yeah, inverted commas. Has included Lavigne's red carpet shots. So apparently Avril Lavigne likes to wear things like trousers, but Melissa prefers to wear skirts and dresses.
Okay, how do we know this?
Begs the question. The supposed differences between the facial features of pre-2003 Lavigne and current incarnation as well are supposedly different.
Maybe she, she liked the custard tarts and had too much pastry goodness.
When we're getting older, we start to fill out a little bit more.
Yeah, don't be so hard on her. She's got to enjoy that fame and indulge once in a while.
Got married to Derek Whibley from Sum 41 as well.
But then divorced, didn't they?
And then got with the guy from Nickelback, who she then divorced again.
Or did she?
Interesting. Theorists also believe Melissa has left clues in songs. So here we go again. The old Paul McCartney.
Play it backwards, yeah.
In Slip Backward, she sings, "The day you slipped away was the day I found it won't be the same." So again, I think, are you looking a little bit too much into this? I think you probably are. There was also a publicity shot in which Lavigne has Melissa written on her hand, which you can find on the internet, which is a little bit weird.
But surely you can find dating on the internet, though. I mean, no, nothing on the internet can be validated as true, because there's the horrific trend of doctoring images, quite graphic images for certain industries where people are using people's faces on other people's bodies, and that is scaringly very lifelike. So if you could do that, you can just scrawl the name on the hand and superimpose it. Nothing on the internet can be validated as true. Sure,
no, it's true. It's like you say with one guy I follow on Instagram, Boss Logic, who you'd have heard of.
Yeah.
Does some of the Marvel posters. You see the way he turns some of the actors into superheroes.
Yeah, they're phenomenal.
It's brilliant. It's so clever. And there was one you posted this week of Spider-Verse where it had Maguire, Garfield, and Holland in this picture. It's just brilliant. So good.
Yeah.
But however, again, this conspiracy theory about Avril Lavigne is completely unverified. Quelle surprise.
Shock. Okay.
But I mean, if you want to stick onto the pop star,
let's put on that thread down.
Taylor Swift.
Now, I haven't heard anything about this.
This is ridiculous. It's so funny.
She is hugely popular in the US, and she's probably one of the most famous singers of modern pop music.
Briefly dated Tom Hiddleston, which my other half hates.
Who hasn't? What, hates the fact that she did that, or hates Tom Hiddleston?
Hates Tom Hiddleston.
No way.
Just for that one thing, but she probably still would dump me for Tom Hiddleston.
Too right. So would I. I'd dump you for Tom Hiddleston, Dan.
Oh.
He can sit next to me for the weekly roundup. Sorry. But yeah, she obviously was if you don't know who she is, it's crazy. You should do. But she used to be quite a young country singer.
Yeah.
That's where she found her roots, but she's now branched out into popular music. But I haven't heard any theories about her.
So again, you start to go down a rabbit hole when you start looking at pop stars. Theorists say that Tay Swift is in fact a clone of a former satanic priestess.
Wow.
So this theory dates back to 2011, And there are claims that Swift is an Illuminati clone of Zena LaVey. Now, anyone unfamiliar with Zena LaVey?
Tell us.
She's the daughter of the founder of the Church of Satan. Now, the two do look slightly similar, but are they the same person? I'm not sure.
A clone. So
a clone.
A fully test-tubed up replica that's been, designed to sing absolute classics?
To be a pop star.
Wow. That's quite a leap, given that we only had Dolly the Sheep in, 1998 or something?
Yeah, it's like late 90s, early 90s, wasn't it? The sheep lasted for 8 years.
Oh, great innings for a sheep,
yeah.
I'm sure. But
and a clone.
But to go to Tay-Tay? Okay.
Yeah, Illuminati. Strange one. And talking of the Illuminati, I think that had something to do with Beyonce.
Yeah, Beyonce apparently is a member of this secret organisation. I do have some notes on the old Illuminati actually, but I have heard this one.
So apparently she's long been associated with the Illuminati on certain areas of the internet. So again, we're going back to the internet, and there's some weird, wonderful, dark things on there.
Very dark stuff.
Beyonce actually referenced it in a single formation.
Okay.
The Illuminati. It's claimed that the Illuminati uses clones to brainwash society. So again, we're sort of tying this into the Taylor Swift theory. So the internet, it only takes 2 pictures of the same person to set conspiracy theory wheels in motion.
Uh-huh.
So in 2016, this theory gained a flurry of attention, so it went viral. A Facebook post compared images of the singer from 2010 and 2016, and the post read, "Fans, the chick on the left is her, but the chick on the right is not. This high-degree masonry witch on the right is a clone." I mean, if you look, I think they're the same person. I think the picture on the right, she's just got a bit more heavy makeup, and she just looks she's got a resting bitch face on.
I mean, can't someone have an off day without being labelled as a clone set by the Illuminati? I mean, that's what someone would say if they were in charge of a South Coast podcast show, trying to put people off. But yeah, just give people a break, man. If they want to look rough, then just let them look rough without having to say that they're part of a satanic Illuminati cult.
I mean, if we start looking different on pictures on Instagram, it's the Illuminati.
We are the lizard people, which actually I'll come to in a moment.
But last up on the pop star front, so this has no relevance to the Illuminati or anything like that. Katy Perry.
Okay.
I think we talked about this one in the car when we decided we were going to do this episode. Katy Perry is the grown-up version of John Benet Ramsey.
Which is really dark.
This is very, very dark.
I didn't know anything about John Benet until I met my wife. And the reason being is she has been emotionally scarred by the story. John Benet was, I think, a child... Beauty queen, which I can't really wrap my head around it, because we don't have it here in the UK. It's not really a European thing, but I know it's quite popular in the US. But apparently in the dead of night she was snatched and believed to have been murdered, although it hasn't been confirmed. I don't think. I never found a body.
No, apparently he's killed at the age of 6 in a family home.
And yeah, it's quite a dark story. So they're saying that Katy Perry, what is that little girl?
Yeah. So the bizarre idea birthed by YouTuber Dave Johnson.
Bloody Dave.
There's always a Dave, isn't there? Claims the young beauty queen was sacrificed by her parents so she could become famous later in life. So if you sacrifice someone, then surely you're killing them. How do you bring them back to life to become a pop star? Or did they fake her death?
Yeah, probably philosophically.
I guess that's the way it's supposedly meant to be. So ultimately, fake death. He tries to prove his point with photos allegedly showing Ramsey's parents are the same people pretending to be the parents of Katy Perry. So this is very dark and twisted. And then he tries to blend pictures of a young Ramsey into pictures of the grown-up Katy Perry and argues features line up perfectly. They don't.
Oh.
Soz.
Get in the sea.
Get in the sea. In my notes I just put lol.
And that's quite a stretch to say that, because it is a really popular kind of it's a head scratcher in kind of crime circles of, I think it was the early 90s that horrific incident happened. Anyway, Katy Perry is she's obviously a famous singer, and she's well known in for the wrong reasons, dating various famous people, but to go that far is a bit wrong.
Yeah, it's like I just say at the start of the episode, there's some weird, bitter, narcissistic people, I think, that probably just try and invent these things.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, so what have you got next?
The Illuminati.
They're going to come after us after this episode, aren't they?
Well, we're not saying anything bad about them.
No, I mean, I trust them.
Our overlords. Apparently, they control the world. So if you don't know what we're talking about, the Illuminati, they're said to be made up of politicians, bankers, obviously, thanks to the global crash, guys.
Hurry up and give me a tax rebate.
Business moguls and celebrities. Apparently, it's a shadowy group controlling the world. Now, there was actually an Illuminati, for real, which date back to the mid-1700s, where the society was founded by a Bavarian law professor, Adam Weishaupt. Now, his intention was to start an academic organisation of modern thinkers prepared to challenge the views of the church. The Illuminati soon became a highly secret society promoting enlightenment as well as a moral progress for all. However, this angered the priesthood, who revoked Weishaupt's academic credentials and banished him from the country. Oops. Ooh. The group eventually was banned by every country at the end of the 18th century. Now, apparently, the evidence of the Illuminati is in most areas or facets of modern society. If you look hard enough, now apparently a use of the all-seeing eye, or the eye of providence as it's called, is one such hallmark. Now, you may be able to see that on a dollar bill. I think you can see a pyramid and an eye. The eye. Yeah. The image itself has origins in Christian iconography, showing an eye often surrounded by rays of light or glory and usually enclosed by a triangle. Now, it represents the eye of God watching over humanity, which is obviously the concept of divine providence. But apparently it's one of the main telltale signs or symbols that the Illuminati is in the banking industry, and it literally is in your pockets. They are controlling everything that you do, if you believe that. And to go to an extra kind of length on that one, there's also closely linked about the reptilian elite.
Okay.
You heard about this one, Dan?
No.
Have you not?
So are we like lizard people or something?
Oh, yeah. No, literally that's it.
Oh, so we're lizard people?
Well, no, we're not.
But they are?
They can be.
Okay.
Beyonce's one. No, for real.
Really?
Yeah. So
I'm waiting for her to like poke her tongue out and like have those weird like skinny pointy. I don't know how actions are helping our listeners here.
The sound effects definitely aren't. But I think Family Guy make reference to it in a couple of scenes.
Oh, Seth MacFarlane, my man crush. Yeah.
Well, they are among us. Blood-drinking, flesh-eating, shape-shifting, extraterrestrial reptilian humanoids, which is a mouthful, with only one objective in their cold-blooded little heads, which is to enslave the human race. They are our leaders, our corporate executives, our beloved Oscar-winning actors and Grammy-winning singers, and they're responsible for some pretty dark world events, which I won't label because they are pretty sick. But at least according to former BBC Sports reporter David Icke, have you heard of David Icke?
Yeah, name rings a bell.
Who became the poster human for the theory in the 1998 after publishing his book The Biggest Secret, which contained interviews with two Brits who claimed members of the royal family are nothing more than reptiles with crowns. Now, apart from being a bonkers conspiracy theorist, the New Age philosopher, who wore only turquoise for a time and insisted on being called a son of Godhead, says that these Anunnaki, the reptiles, have controlled humankind since ancient times. They count among their number as Queen Elizabeth, George W. Bush, Henry Kissinger, Bill and Hillary Clinton, and Bob Hope.
Oh, good old Bob.
But don't forget Beyonce. Apparently Ike even claims that lizards are behind secret societies like the Freemasons and the Illuminati.
Ooh.
What do you reckon, Dan? Do you think that our world leaders, the top 1% of society, the most wealthy and rich, who are steering us sheeple, are actually shape-shifting lizards? What do you reckon?
No. Not sure on that one.
It's one of the more strangest of theories, and I hugely doubt this one.
Yeah.
Don't know why. Just something about it just doesn't sit well with me.
No. It's a bit of a weird one, that. Shape-shifting lizards.
But if you do Google, and again, you've got to be careful on the internet, so safe browsing, guys. But if you do Google Illuminati and lizards, there is an absolute ton of this stuff on the internet.
Okay.
So I'm surprised I didn't come across this now.
Yeah, no, I'm surprised as well.
It's massive.
I got pulled down the pop star rabbit hole of conspiracy theories.
Well, that one is the Reptilian Elite.
Now, interesting, I've just seen you scroll past something which would probably tie into the Marilyn Monroe conspiracy theory, which was sent in by Claire, my other half. Just got to go on record, Alex. Claire has clocked me say a couple of times, if I don't mention this from her, she'll shoot me. She won't. She's not a tyrant. She's a very nice person.
But there is another conspiracy, including shooting, that we'll dovetail off this one.
Yes. So Marilyn Monroe. Now, Claire absolutely loves Marilyn Monroe, as you probably know, because you guys were friends before I met her. Yep.
She's literally tattooed a couple of times with various hallmarks of the famous...
She's got a signature on the back and so forth. She has studied this conspiracy theory in so much depth that I don't think there's any books left for her to read. And there is a recommendation for her when I get to the end of this. So, Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her home on August the 5th, 1962. Police said suicide by drug overdose. However, there was no trace of pills found in her stomach.
Oh.
So it gets a bit deeper. Why would someone with so many plans for the future kill herself? So she was sort of coming back and just trying to figure out how to get her life back on the rise again. So she was sort of like fallen down a little bit. So, LAPD Sergeant Jack Clemens, first officer at the scene, claimed her body looked staged.
Oh.
If someone swallowed dozens of pills, why wasn't there a glass of water nearby? And also, what I didn't put in my notes, which I was talking to Claire about last night actually, when I was talking about doing this episode.
Yeah.
Some of the pills that are in the picture of this book that I'll recommend at the end didn't make it to forensics. So some of the stuff didn't actually turn up.
Huh. So what, they're citing evidence that actually was never actually submitted in the end?
Indeed. Some theorists believe Robert Kennedy had her killed to stop her revealing, should I say, her romance with him and his brother.
Yeah.
So I guess that sort of ties into one of your theories which will be coming up. Some say the CIA murdered her to punish JFK for Bay of Pigs.
Yep.
Her doctor killed her by accident is another theory, and covered up with the help of her maid. And I mean, again, on my notes I put a massive lol, 2 underlines. Some believe she was murdered by aliens.
Huh.
Which is a ridiculous theory. But
maybe more likely than aliens, the shape-shifting lizard people of the Illuminati.
But if you want to read more on this conspiracy theory, and it's a bit more of a background depth for Marilyn Monroe, Claire recommends Goddess, The Secret Lives of Marilyn Monroe by Anthony Summers. And the picture I've got here, as Alex will attest for, it is well read.
It is. It's dog-eared. It's seen a lot of reading.
She's read it multiple times, apparently.
Okay, good.
It's a very good one. I might pick it up at some point and give it a read myself.
Yeah.
When I'm not reading Marvel graphic novels.
Well, indeed, quite, or watching the films. We're kind of linking to this, Dan, as you alluded to, the JFK assassination. A really sad moment in American history, but one quite famous one, was the assassination of President John Fitzgerald Kennedy. And there's loads of wild conspiracy theories. The leading one is that there was more than one shooter involved. Now, this stems from the official investigation into the assassination that claimed that Lee Harvey Oswald managed to kill the president, as well as wounding a fellow passenger who was with the car at the time, with just 3 rounds.
I saw a documentary on this late last year as well, so hopefully I can have a bit of an insight into this.
Well, it's asserted that one bullet had passed through Kennedy before hitting a passenger, but skeptics have called this fanciful and dubbed it the magic bullet theory.
Yeah.
And this is all because, I guess, the distance and the elevation of this grassy knoll or where he was actually arrested. And this wasn't in fact the case, or they don't believe it to be the case.
Yeah.
He was either a fantastic shot, which I think there was proof that he had practiced, shooting firearms before, but I don't think it was really indicated he was a particular, notable marksman. And the weather conditions would have had to been absolutely perfect, and I don't think they were. I think there was, if I remember rightly, seeing the run up to the awful event, flags, blowing in the wind, so he would have had to have pulled off like a 1 in a million shot or something.
Yeah.
Instead, though, people believe that there's more than one shooter, and that the shot was fired from a grassy knoll near the route of the motorcade. It's also claimed the FBI orchestrated the killing. Other theories centre on who might have paid Oswald and gave him orders, which can include the old Soviet Union, Cuba specifically, or the mafia. And there are other insinuations, perhaps a better term to say, that JFK was perhaps involved in some unsavoury business off the books. I don't know if it's ever been proven, but people are drawing upon that questionable background and saying that other people perhaps ordered the killing. Apparently Vice President Lyndon B. Johnson, who was sworn in as president after Kennedy's death, has also been accused, with some suggesting he wanted to cover up scandals or take control of the country in a coup. So it's all got quite messy. And I guess what you tend to find is, I'm not getting behind the psychology, I think it's just an observation, when something quite stressful happens and it's a shared national event, people try to make sense of quite sad instances.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, it hasn't been proven. I think there is still some prevailing doubt that the shooter actually could have pulled this off, but there is no real evidence to suggest otherwise, contrary to that fact. But it's still one of the most contested conspiracy theories out there.
Now, the documentary I watched last year, one of the theories is it was a pure accident. So they heard the shot from Oswald. One of his security got the gun out to get ready to shoot. The car buckled and he accidentally shot the gun, which would explain where the bullet sort of comes from originally. And they covered it up to make it, just to sort of...
assassination.
Yeah.
As opposed to an accident.
Exactly.
Wow.
So they've tried to sort of palm it off. Because the interesting thing is, when they were doing the autopsy, I think there was a law in the state where it had to take place in that state.
Yeah.
Was it Texas?
Pass.
I can't quite remember. Sadly, my American history isn't quite up to scratch. But I think the CIA were like, nope, he's coming with us. We're going to take him back to... I can't remember what state it was now. And again, when the autopsy took place there, a lot of the evidence went missing.
Oh, right.
So they tried to cover up the accident and pass the blame to young Oswald. But it was a good documentary. I can't remember what it was called, but it was on Channel 5 here in the UK.
Okay.
It was good watching, really interesting.
Well, I don't think we're ever going to get to the bottom of it. It's going to be one of those instances where we'll never know. But yeah, it's a popular one, and the debate is still raging after all these years.
Yeah.
I've got some more, Dan.
Yep, go for it.
Prince Charles, our much loved, tongue-in-cheek royal, is a vampire.
I mean, that wouldn't surprise me.
Did you know this one?
I did not.
No, I didn't either, but I did some research. Apparently, according to genealogy records, so looking at people's heritage, Prince Charles is believed to be of descent from Vlad the Impaler, which derived from, the Dracula kind of myth. Vlad the Impaler was actually an individual who, did impale victims with a stake, prisoners of war like, and he actually did exist. So there are some roots of history. We're not talking about fictional characters. Apparently first revealed in Ian Moncrief's 1982 book Royal Highness the Prince, can trace his lineage back to his great-grandmother Queen Mary, the consort of George V, to Vlad IV, the half-brother of the notorious ruler and serial killer, I guess. The heir to the throne has even appeared in promotional video for the Romanian National Tourist Office, joking, "Transylvania is in my blood."
Okay.
Obviously, he's a vampire.
Yeah.
In 2017, just a mere couple of years ago, it was reported that Charles had been offered the honorific title of Prince of Transylvania because of his links to the region and promotion of Transylvania as a tourist destination. Actually, he does go there every year.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I
probably
never knew this.
To go and rest in his coffin and to regenerate. All this has proved for fertile ground for conspiracy theorists who claim, like the rest of the royal family, that Prince Charles is not all what he seems and may in fact have more common with the infamous ancestor than just the drop of blood. One of the reasons the theory carries weight apparently is because the disease porphyria is present amongst the royals, and apparently this is an iron deficiency disease that makes the skin sensitive to sunlight.
Okay.
As we know, vampires,
they just burst into flames.
They don't like sunlight.
Unless you're in Twilight and you sparkle.
Yeah, what is that all about?
Weird. Get in the sea.
So that one I thought was really quite strange.
Now, interestingly, while you were talking, I found one on J.K. Rowling. Apparently she isn't real.
Now, we have an interesting love-hate relationship with J.K. Rowling in the weekly roundup, don't we, Dan?
Yeah. Harry Potter books, fantastic. Fantastic Beasts franchise, no, not so good.
Not so good. But apparently she ain't the real deal.
No. So, I mean, we all know her background story. So she was financially struggling as a single mother. And she wrote Harry Potter on the train. Then...
As you do.
Yeah. Oh, no, she came up with the idea on the train. And then she wrote the first book in cafes. And she's now one of the richest authors in the world, which is fair to say.
Yeah.
So, according to this theory, none of that is true. Harry Potter was actually masterminded by a team of advertisers and writers who lab created a franchise that would appeal to the entire world. And the woman you think is J.K. Rowling is just an actress who was hired to play the part of the author at events. Why that actress has gone on to write books that aren't part of the Harry Potter franchise is a mystery to be solved another day.
But if she has decided to pen books or stories that aren't her own, perhaps that's why we have Fantastic Beasts, which is fucking appalling.
Terrible. So,
there could be something in that.
There could be something in that.
There's not, but it's just she's money grabbing, and she's just squeezed that as for everything it's worth, and she's driving the franchise, much loved by people all around the world, into the ground.
You know, you were talking about Prince Charles being a vampire.
Yeah.
Scrolling down, Nicolas Cage is a vampire.
Oh, come off it. He's our 90s film action hero. I will not have a bad word said against Nick.
In 2011, an antiques dealer named Jack Maud listed a photograph for sale on eBay. And again, we're going back onto the murky depths of the internet. This photograph was taken around 1870, but according to Maud, the man in this photograph was Nicolas Cage. And I quote, "Personally, I believe it's him and that he is some sort of walking undead vampire who quickens, reinvents himself once every 75 years or so," Maud wrote in the listing. Obviously, this theory caught on like wildfire because it's hilarious and it involves Nicolas Cage. But according to Nicolas, it's not even a little bit true. You can't take pictures of vampires, he told David Letterman in 2012.
True story.
I don't drink blood, and the last time I looked in the mirror, I had a reflection. Likely story.
There you go. It's been debunked by the man himself. But maybe a vampire would say that.
Of course.
But if we talk about people who don't seemingly age, there's another much-loved actor that we actually know and love who apparently doesn't age a day.
Paul Rudd?
Paul Rudd.
Yeah.
I mean, he did like a Nintendo advert, I think, like back in the early 90s, late 80s. Looks exactly the same as pretty much as he does now. You know, he's 30 years on. The bloke does not age in the slightest. And I'm jealous, but could he be a vampire?
I just think he's using good face creams.
Well, whatever it is, we need to get on that gravy train because it's.
I'm starting to get crow's feet on my eyes.
So it looks
Sad
painful.
Times.
But enough about vampires. I wanted to tell you, Dan.
Yeah.
Everything that you learnt in geography, those lessons that you probably weren't paying attention to because they're mandatory for UK GCSEs, you know, exams before you left for college. They're all wrong.
Oh, okay.
Finland doesn't exist.
Got taken out in Armageddon.
Well, no, apparently it doesn't exist at all. Apparently,
Oh.
the nation of Finland is actually part of the Baltic Sea, and people who claim to live there are really from eastern Sweden, western Russia, or northern Estonia, according to a theory born on Reddit in 2016.
Right. Reddit, the most reliable place on the internet.
Yeah. So what began as a joke quickly gained traction online, spawning numerous subreddits and websites explaining why Russia and Japan had made up this apparently fictional country in 1918.
Oh.
The notion goes that two nations created Finland so that Japan could fish the sea that truly exists there without any environmental complaints or repercussions. The fish that are caught are then shipped via the Trans-Siberian Railway, apparently no reason why it was built, for the eastern Russian coast to Japan under the disguise of Nokia products. Very specific brand product placement there. But surely other countries would have cottoned on by this by now? Well, yes, they have, according to theorists, but they've agreed to keep it a secret and allow Finland to serve as a model for the better world.
Right.
Apparently they're so good, why do we want to debunk that when everyone else can aspire to be as good as them? No real country could so consistently place first in education, healthcare, gender equality, literacy rates, national stability, the least corrupt government in the world, freedom of press. Apparently reads the theory. It's a concept for countries and people to aspire to.
Right.
So they're so good as a country, it can't possibly exist.
Sure.
So literally getting a C, Finland. And I've literally never heard that one before.
Has any of our listeners been to Finland? I mean, can you let us know you've been there and confirm it's genuinely not the sea?
But perhaps they've been to Russia.
Touche.
Or Siberia. How do they know they've been to Finland?
This is true.
They get on the plane. They pay their tickets to Helsinki, is it?
Yeah.
Finland?
Yeah.
My geography's not that great, I guess. But they got on a plane. They got off a plane. But how do they know that the destination is actually that country?
You could be part of a conspiracy theory.
Unknowingly. But no, all comments aside, listener, you know, let us know you've been to Finland. Is it true? Is it all nonsense? Is it just for our pesky Russian neighbours and the need to fish? Or does it actually exist and the theory can get in the sea?
Get in the sea.
Let us know.
But that's it.
That is it.
I'm all out of conspiracy theories. I mean,
my head is spinning, Dan. The amount of craziness that we have had to research and dig up. My mind is literally blown.
There were certain conspiracy theories that I think we got recommended, and I think they're probably a little bit too dark for the weekly roundup. It's fair to say. There's certain ones that I'm not willing to touch. I think it's probably a little bit sensitive for certain audiences.
I agree.
But yeah, that's it for this week.
It is.
However, we want your Mandela effects.
We do, yeah. So we've mentioned this for the last couple of episodes. This is really interesting. And as part of conspiracy theories, it has cropped up, but we're going to be doing its whole kind of offshoot episode.
Mm.
And the Mandela effect, in essence, well, as you'd expect, it's all about Nelson Mandela and how when he eventually made out of prison for the second time.
Yeah.
I believe he was imprisoned twice, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I believe he was, for his protests. The second time when he was released, which was a monumentous and fantastic occasion for the world to follow, and I did watch it on TV. People remembered him dying in prison, which is really, really sad. But they remembered him passing away a good 5-10 years previously. And this has sparked this theory that actually, well, did it happen? Did it occur? Because actually, millions of thousands, at least, people around the world are remembering an event that never happened. So they call it the Mandela effect, and you'll see it in children's TV, you'll see it in world events, you'll see it in other influential actors or celebrities, perhaps, who have perhaps passed away, or an event has occurred where people remember it, but it's not recorded in history as happening that way.
Well, we mentioned it a couple of weeks ago with Rip Torn, who sadly passed away recently, but people remember him passing away in 2013.
Yeah, and apparently having an impact on Men in Black 3, and that was why the delays in production and release of the film in respect of his passing. But in fact, he only passed a couple of weeks ago of recording, which is really, really sad. We marked it in the last roundup, but for the reason, that he had such a wonderful career and such a great actor. But yeah, it's even happening now. So we want to get your views and opinions. Do you share any Mandela effects? Do you believe in them? And let us know your thoughts and reflections on that.
Now you can get in touch with us on Facebook at the Weekly Roundup with Alex and Dan. We're on Twitter at hello_TWRAD. We're on Instagram on @hello.twrad, or you can email us at hello.twrad@gmail.com.
And alternatively, in the description below this podcast, wherever you may get that, there will be a link to record your voice. So for the last couple of weeks, we have been very fortunate, and thank you, listeners, for leaving voice messages and being part of the show. If you want to do the same, then please do click on that link, accept the access to your mobile device microphone, and you can be part of the show next time.
Yeah, not literally, but you can have your voice featured.
You can. So think of those questions, those answers, or all those queries, and we'll have them in the show. But for another really confusing but really interesting week, I'm going to take off my tinfoil hat now.
Same.
I've been Alex.
I've been Dan.
We may see you next week.
When we're not captured by the Illuminati or turned into lizard people or cloned.